This is the Gutsy Health Podcast with Janique and Tristan Roney. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gutsy Health Podcast.
Welcome everybody.
We have some guests on here. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, we totally can. My name is Katie Baker. I'm on Instagram as Baker's Trippin' _, or if not, it looks like something else, and you'll see when you follow along. But yeah, I am a mom of 6. Mm-hmm. My oldest is 10. I have 8-year-old, and then I have triplet 4-year-olds.
Ooh.
Yeah,
a lot of kids.
Deep breath, everyone. And then I have a 1.5-year-old. So, and I'm still here.
Still breathing.
Living testament.
And equally important, the kids are still alive and breathing.
Yes.
We just saw them. I've got proof.
This is true.
Yep.
This is true.
And that's the most impressive part, really.
Exactly.
Well, thank you.
Katie, before we introduce Liza, tell us a little bit about what you do, your profession, your professional background, because our podcast today is on feeding children healthy food and overcoming these obstacles, because it's really hard and it's really tricky. And we want to validate that for moms and then empower them with tools. So can you give us a little bit of your background and how that has helped you get to... The reason why I brought Katie on here, and we'll go to Liz in just a second, but the reason why Katie's on here is because her kids eat so well. I mean, I just saw a video of them eating, like holding a dead octopus and playing with it. And then they ate it for dinner. And I mean, I probably wouldn't have eaten that for dinner. So, tell us a little bit about your professional background.
Sure. So I'm a registered nurse, mostly in emergency medicine. Mm-hmm. Nearly 15 years working at the hospital in that kind of a setting, also as a first responder, and trickling down to like plastic surgery. Worked at a prison, and I also worked as a foster care / CPS nurse in California. Cool. So pretty big background that way.
Yeah. Occupational therapy as well, right?
I have occupational therapy exposure through my triplets.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was kind of like immersion, right?
Cool. Yeah. Yep.
But and I absorbed a lot and advocated for them.
Cool.
Which was super huge. And then as far as food goes, it was really a journey of my own health and recognizing how food affected me, and then seeing behavioral changes in my own children, which is huge, right?
Yes.
We're all trying to troubleshoot our kids and do what's best. Mm-hmm. And yes, that really drove that home for us.
You have a kid with sensory processing disorders, right?
I do.
And so you've noticed the difference between what he does and doesn't eat and how that affects him cognitively, correct?
Correct. Food dyes, sugar is a big one.
Processed carbs.
Because they lend to wanting all those carbs. Mm-hmm. He's on that spectrum of wanting the bread and the fried foods and the cheeseburgers.
And the chicken McNuggets.
Oh, totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I'm hungry.
Thank you, Katie. And then we also have Liza on here with us. Liza, introduce yourself. And Liza is like one of my best friends. And we've been wanting to do a podcast together for over a year. And so Liza, introduce yourself.
I am Liza. Just one name, no last name.
like Beyonce.
That's how important I am in your life.
Like Beyonce.
So we are neighbors with the Ronies. We met a little over a year ago and immediately hit it off because we had so many things in common. Mm-hmm. We had gone through a lot of the same journey of being professional questioners.
A lot of the stuff that we complain about here on the show is stuff that we already kind of pre-worked through with Liza and her husband.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
So they kind of help us to pre-test a lot of these ideas.
Yeah. Like, no, you're not crazy. We believe like you.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll just we're wearing the tinfoil hats together, or maybe we're the ones.
Sometimes we start talking and all we know is, well, there's at least 4 of us.
There's at least 4 of us.
So
who
maybe
feel the
there's
same.
5. Maybe someone else out there thinks this is also
5 and
true.
6.
All right, there we go.
Let's do a podcast.
And so here we are.
Okay. So I don't even have my outline up, guys. I'm sorry. So feeding kids is hard because, and I get a lot of moms weekly reach out to me and they're like, how did you get your kids to eat these kale chips? Or how do you get them to eat green pancakes or vegetables or their soups? And I do want to express, like, it takes a lot of work. Like, feeding kids is hard because sugar is really addicting, right? It's the most addicting substance on the planet.
It's made to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's the point. It's made to be. Oh, it's sorry, not
No,
close
you're
enough.
good. Yeah, come close.
So not practiced in vodka. Yes, it's made to be. It's chemically made to be.
Exactly. It's made to be cheap and very stimulating and addicting and colorful.
And it's also ubiquitous. I mean, go to a gas station, go to a
Yes.
baseball game. You don't have fresh veggies and fresh fruit.
No, you don't.
You have processed packaged food in your face all the time, everywhere you go.
In beautiful,
schools.
bright
At
colors with cartoon characters pushing it, right?
Exactly.
With free toys inside. What kid wouldn't want that?
But it's addicting, but it's also very emotionally reinforcing too, because just like you said, baseball games, gas stations, holidays, movie theaters, rewards at school.
Right, it's totally a form of grooming.
It is. Oh my gosh. It is.
Sugar is grooming.
Yep.
It disconnects the relationship with the parents. It disconnects being present in the moment.
Yep.
It's altering because it's chemically made to be altering.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's the perfect word to put it. And now a lot of people are probably listening right now and they're like, whoa, you guys are being really severe on food. But you guys, the statistics are there. The evidence is there. Sugar is poisonous to your body.
But sugar's not food.
Sugar's
not food.
It's not. And yet we are so scared. We are so terrified to make our kids uncomfortable and force them to eat their vegetables. Why? How did we get here? Like, what happened? What broke down in our society and our culture where we will force our kids to go to school? We'll force them to do homework. We'll force them to practice their piano. But when it comes to fruits and vegetables, people throw their hands up in the air and they're like, I don't know what to do here.
And it's important to note also that this is a new phenomenon, right? This is relatively recently in history where this was going on. 50 years ago, even, it wasn't nearly as bad as it is. 100 years ago, it was unheard of. They were just starting to process food in the, early 1900s, right?
Yeah. Well, not to mention my age, but I get into my teens and now it's this low fat, add sugar to everything craze and the food pyramid, and it's part of the pyramid.
Yeah.
You know, like practitioners, nutritionists, child development specialists are being told that that's Bible.
Right. Yep. In fact, I have probably one dietitian a week reach out to me and they say to me, I am horrified that I have to recommend what I'm told to, but I will have my license taken away if I counsel them otherwise. And they know better, but they have to do this because it's government regulated. It's FDA enforced and approved.
And same with nurses.
Yes.
So when we're given discharge instructions and we have to recommend a heart healthy diet or the American Cancer Society diet, right? And then they're sponsored by, brands who manufacture processed meats.
Right.
And it's but it's high in nitrate. So we can go on with that. But it's all whose hand is in whose pocket.
Right.
And then we're forced to recommend these diets.
Yeah.
And a quick side note on that, for people not in the know, dietitians are the only official kind of diet prescriber people, right? I mean, obviously a doctor can do that, a nurse can do that, but the dietitians are the ones who actually have the degree that says they can
Science.
counsel people in their diet. Whereas nutritionists are typically, they might be certified, but there's no official licensing that goes along with that.
Right.
And in many states, a dietitian is the only one outside of your traditional medical professionals who can give personalized nutrition advice.
Right.
So when their hands are tied and the doctor's hands are tied and the nurse's hands are tied, that means that we basically have a form of censorship going on where the only information that you are officially allowed to receive is the official line of information that oftentimes is a good 20 years behind. Or in this case, it was new 100 years ago and it was wrong and it's still wrong, but at least we're starting to recognize that.
Totally.
We got off track for a whole century. And now here we are trying to fix it. So let's talk about how we can do that.
Yep. So we understand.
Sorry, I do want to interject really fast.
Yes,
I think
please.
it's been going on more than a century. So when my husband and I went to the new African American Museum in Washington, D.C. over a year ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, I can't remember. The entire thing takes you through the timeline and the history of slavery. And I had forgotten the connection between sugar and slavery in this country.
Yeah.
So not to bring up another, controversial subject like slavery, because that's something we're all dealing with, as our culture
Yeah.
right now. But there is a massive connection between rich people food and peasant food that goes back more than 100 years. So this is something that has been in our history for a long time.
Yeah.
And it is this addiction
Yeah.
that's been happening with severe consequences because it's changing our skeletal systems and not giving our bones and the nutrients what it needs to grow. So
Exactly.
even just having like another article I was reading of how our skulls have been shrinking for the past 250 years,
Wow.
which causes all kinds of problems
Yes.
in our cranial systems.
Now, why is that
So,
happening?
Why is that happening?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Yeah, I mean, Weston A. Price would bring up, the X factor, the vitamin K,
Yeah.
things like that, getting away from our traditional foods because modern food has been shown over and over and over again to be so nutrient starved
Yeah.
that it's hurting us, causing really big problems.
Yep.
And there's also, recently I read about children's musculoskeletal systems, our muscles are just, their mass alone has decreased
Yeah.
like 20 to 30% just from 2 generations.
Which is really scary.
And they're contributing it to the lack of exposure to the outdoors and free and playtime and like metal playground equipment used to be the common, right? Where you had to really like push the merry-go-round and you're really contracting, using your muscles.
or you're climbing or you're,
Right. It was higher heights, heavier objects.
Yeah.
And now the kids are getting exposed to less and less of that exposure.
Yeah.
So their muscles and they're atrophied.
Yeah.
All that stuff's too dangerous now, right? So the only safe thing is a little plastic slide.
Yep.
And then like a bridge that you walk across.
Yep.
The dumbest playground toy ever. There's a bridge.
So food, we have this massive cultural issue and things are getting worse and worse. And we've mentioned in other podcasts, like childhood health statistics are they're atrocious. So allergies have increased by 30% since the mid 90s. Childhood cancer has increased 32% since the 70s. Childhood obesity is expected to be one in 3 children are supposed to be obese by 2030. So these are really scary statistics. We're not getting healthier. Our kids are more sickly. When they get sick now, they're sicker for longer. And people could argue that, it's because the strain of the virus or whatever, they're getting more aggressive. But their immune systems are just not staying up to par.
I didn't plan on this, but I'm going to shout out someone. It's Savannah Tate from the Hayes Tough Foundation.
Okay.
And she's another triplet mom. And she lost one of her triplets to childhood cancer. And she shared recently that 6 people died as a result of vaping, because that's right. But no one's in an uproar over 7 kids every day dying from childhood cancer.
It took New York like less than a week to outlaw vaping when that whole thing broke out.
Yeah.
And what have we done for childhood
nutrition,
health? Right?
Nothing. Like we're not, and I'm not saying we need to force kids to eat vegetables, but like we're not educating. We're not, I force my kids to eat vegetables, but there's zero education around this.
They don't have the perspective.
No.
We're not even giving them the choice to have a choice.
Right, exactly.
The opportunity.
I guess this is why I yell on Instagram every day at people like us and be like, feed your children vegetables. It can be done. So, so we've established that there's a massive problem.
Well, there's one more thing I'd like to bring into that, because it ties in what Liza was saying about this is not new. This has been going on for a long time. Back probably about 60 years ago, I can't remember the exact year, there was a doctor named Pottinger, and he was studying cats. And he had this group of completely healthy cats that they didn't have any health issues. And then they changed their diet to one that was entirely processed food.
Yeah.
And within their own lifespan, these cats started to develop symptoms of weakness and illness. But it was their children, the kittens, that really were messed up.
Yeah.
And then they reversed their diet back to the all natural, healthy diet.
The kittens diet, right?
But their health didn't improve. And their kittens' health didn't improve. And their kittens, it took 4 generations, I believe, for
it to normalize again.
their health to get back to normal.
So is this the equivalent of breaking the chain, right? In a human, in our generations, we break that chain for the future.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in a way, I'm kind of trying to scare people even more to say that, it's been an accelerating process starting way back in, who knows, the 1700s, but especially in the last 50 years now that giant food corporations have become a thing where we are just super speeding towards this epidemic of everything. It's cancer, it's obesity, it's diabetes, it's you name the health issue. It is accelerating in spite of all the money we are supposedly throwing at it.
Yep.
And now here we are trying to change our diets for 3 weeks and saying, well,
it didn't work. Yep. And that's the most frustrating part is like, even in our Gutsy Health community and membership, that's why we have a 6-month program, because I'm like, you need at least half a year to revamp and reprogram your hormones, your systems, your metabolism, everything. But people come to us constantly, almost daily, and they say, well, I tried healthy food. I tried paleo. It didn't work. And my next question is, how long did you try it? How long? A week? 2 weeks? A month? Like, you can't do anything in a month. Did you give it 6 months? Most of the time, I would say like 99% of the time, like they don't try it for longer. And so, or they're not doing it properly, or they're not being coached through it properly, because there's just so much overwhelming information out there.
And it's just so hard. Let's be honest.
It's really hard.
It is like you have to completely change your lifestyle in order to make food a priority.
Right.
Because it's convenient packaged food everywhere. And we live in a culture where we don't prioritize rest and slowing down and coming together at the dinner table. We're off to soccer games and ballet classes and, grabbing and just packaging in as much as we can. So we use food in our culture to fuel our activities.
Yeah.
We don't have food as an end result to the activity itself, like they do in other cultures.
Yeah.
We go to restaurants and we wait for a table, as opposed to other cultures that say, our restaurant is full, go find another place to eat. Because people are going to be here for hours and hours, conversing, relaxing, having that human connection, having the aesthetic experience.
Right.
So food is so much more than just food and nutrition. It's an experience.
Right.
It's a connection. It's the embodiment of what it is to be human and to share life together with other people. And we do not prioritize that in our culture.
Don't.
And we certainly
Makes it
are not
doubly harder to eat healthy.
Yeah, and we're definitely not teaching that to our children, right?
No.
Our children are learning that you just throw whatever convenient snack into your mouth on your way out the door that you can, and then you're going to binge on sugar again in a couple hours, and then a couple hours after that.
Right, which is one of my problems with the new, because there's like a new health movement of packaged healthy food, quote unquote, but it still is using, refined vegetable oils.
Yes.
And it's still using too much sugar.
Refined, yep.
Right, and then it's still putting an impact on our environment with all of this packaging, and it's still teaching us to not prioritize slowing down and resting to enjoy your food, which we know you need to engage your parasympathetic nervous system in order to properly digest. So if you're eating in a hurry and if life is constantly about rushing, you're still not gaining the benefit of what nutrition can do for you because your lifestyle isn't maximizing that for you.
Exactly.
And our guts aren't priming.
No.
We're never giving a chance to prime. I mean, my parents used to anticipate dinner.
Yes.
Because they would smell it cooking. They would know what's coming up. They had to be planned.
They would be touching it. They would be smelling it, feeling it. Like all your senses are taking it in. So as soon as you start to touch and feel and prep, like you start to salivate more, your gastric juices start to produce more, like your body gets into a mode.
The rumbly and the tumbly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a mom.
Like we've completely gotten rid of that in our culture. Like there is no experience with food anymore.
Well, in that sense, do our kids ever truly feel hungry? Do they really know? I mean, in this cultural mindset of instant gratification of food just being so readily available and as a reward.
Yeah.
Do they ever really know what hungry is, or are they just craving for their fix?
Yep. Is it a sugar hungry, or is it like a real I'm starving for nutrients hungry?
Or a boredom hungry, which seems to be the real form these days. Kids get bored. I'm hungry.
Yep. I know with our children, we encourage them to help wash vegetables, cut vegetables, prep the food, and create an experience around food. Like it's a family affair. It's a family thing. Satori can't do much. She's 2.5, but she can help me grab things. She can help me wash apples. She'll start eating them too, and that's fine. I want to encourage her to help us prep the food, but this art of healthy eating has completely died. It's completely died. And we've created a new art of fast food, drive-ins, and so delicious, and that is scary to me. Like, because there is no nutrient density in that anymore. It's just cheap food, refined food, and very stimulating food too.
And to be honest, as a mom, it makes you feel like the bad guy saying no. That is a huge, difficult, psychological factor for me.
Yeah.
Because my kids are like, oh, you're not going to get me a drink.
Right.
And it's like, no, I love you. And that's why I'm not getting you one. But I know that you don't understand that. So it's finding a balance with that is just, okay, maybe later we can get,
yes,
stevia sodas.
Yes.
And, or maybe you can have some Mom's mineral water. I use the stevia drops in.
Yeah.
It's a balance to everything, right?
Yep.
Like trying to pick and choose the battles, but there's some things you just can't.
Yeah. Yep.
In Tennyson's class at school, someone is responsible for bringing treats for the whole class every day. And the treats have to be store-bought, so it has to be packaged food. And it has to be, they say healthy, but they consider things like goldfish or graham crackers to be healthy.
Because they're different now.
And so what we had to do from the very beginning was basically tell them, we're going to send Tennyson with his own snack every day, and he needs to eat that instead of whatever everyone else is eating.
Yep.
And that is rough on us because sometimes the food that they get looks really tasty. He thinks goldfish are fantastic.
Yeah.
And so he comes home and he complains to us that everybody else got goldfish and he had to eat his apple or whatever, and just like you said, we're the bad guys.
So we've established there is a cultural problem, and it's old and it's been there and it's harming us. And we are almost too ashamed to do anything about it because we don't want to be that mom. And I get people saying that to me all the time. I don't want to be that mom that makes everything awkward. But how do we get over that? Because I know for me, I'm okay for me, it's all about boundaries, right? And for you guys listening out there, what I want to say first is you need to make a choice. We know sugar plus children equals illness and disease. We know that. Science proves that over and over again. So I want to ask you, are you ready to take control of their health now? And what are you willing to do that? Because you do have the power in this. You can take control. You can make changes in their life. But are you willing to start making the boundaries, to start making those decisions? And they're going to have to be firm. It's going to have to be like doing homework every day, like going to school every day, like taking exams every day until it becomes intuitive and natural, right?
I mean, hopefully this isn't a seriously difficult thing for people to decide on, because a lot of parents that I've talked to would say that everything they do is for their children. That may or may not be 100% true, but people really do care for the outcomes that involve their children. They want them to do well in life and be happy, right? Everyone says, I want my kids to be happy.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject on that. Coming from where I grew up, economics, it was so much easier to feed your kids the fast food, the carbs, the heavy Hispanic population. So it was, a lot of beans, rice, lard, tortillas, fried.
Corn.
But there was also a fresh aspect to it too. It was a cultural, family gatherings around food was a very special time. But it's been a process for our family, whereas I think it's intimidating too financially because you hear it all the time. Well, it just costs too much to eat healthy, or it costs too much to buy organic, or so on, right? We hear that excuse all the time. But I think if you really buckled down and narrowed down what you spend on going out to eat and on all that fast food, and then the cost in your lifestyle and the health of the child and what you spend, right? Does it really? Is it really that much more?
Right.
I think it's also this atmosphere of both parents working and trying to make a living, and you just feel that you don't have the time.
Yeah.
To focus on the food. And I think it's about prioritization, and it's about feeling empowered, like you said, because I think we feel like we're subject to the times. Yeah. And this is just so we must be behind because now we're choosing to eat and live this way. When really I feel like we're ahead of the curve. and you just want to share it, right? You want to share the good fruit. We're like, yes, just take a bite.
Totally.
You know, you're like,
It is so delicious. Yeah, exactly. And I've used this analogy before, and I'll use it again. But let's say, because this happens all the time, you go out and there's like a cute old granny on the park. I was like, oh, can I offer your child a treat? Or if your child is throwing a tantrum, can I give her some fruit snacks? What if those same strangers came up to you and said, can I give your child a cigarette?
or cocaine.
Or cocaine. Can I give them some drugs? Can I give them, because that is essentially what they're doing. But one drug is normalized and glorified and worshiped, and the others have been culturally like bashed. And here's the thing is we know that they both harm the body. So where's the problem?
I completely agree. Because I mean, okay, imagine this. Imagine, deep breath, everybody.
Deep breath. Yep.
You're driving the big white passenger van. Okay. Full of 6 kids.
Yeah.
It's been a long day running errands. Oh, you got to stop at the bank or the post office or even the doctor's. Shoot, anywhere here in Utah, in Utah County.
Yeah.
Can I give your kids some suckers?
Oh,
right. Oh my gosh.
Please no.
Please no. Yeah.
Here's a grab basket of, and it's just, it's filled with horrible stuff.
A lot of times they don't even ask.
No, they just offer.
I had a guy
I've had
just
that happen
hand my
so
kids
many
some candy.
times.
How do you take kids candy away from them once it's in their hand?
Right.
I've literally been at Walmart and the guy pulls it out of his Walmart vest, like candy out of his pocket, and hands it to my kids. And I'm like, first off, ew, this is gross. But second of all, it's like, do you drive a big van and live down by the river? You're like, please don't give my kid candy for one. Don't give my kid anything without my permission.
Right.
But more or less the sugar.
Yep.
And
it's so normalized.
Well, and oftentimes these are the nicest people, right? They just want to be giving. It makes them feel good to help other people feel good with sugar. And they don't realize the implications of what they're doing or how it could be destroying a parent's goals with their children's health.
Yep.
Because one piece of candy really isn't a big deal. If you're eating one piece of candy once a week, your body can probably recover and make up for it.
Right.
But that's not the culture we're living in anymore.
No, it's candy
Not
for
at all.
breakfast.
It's
candy for
all
snacks,
day
candy for lunch. And people are like, well, my child doesn't eat candy. Does your child eat waffles? That's basically processed food and candy. Like goldfish, that's processed food. So I guess I shouldn't say candy. I should just say processed food.
Keyword is it's the reward, right? It's like it's the end game. Like you're not successful. Like you didn't read all these books for AR score.
Yes.
And if you don't get that prize at the end, then you didn't really reach the ultimate success.
Right. Yeah.
So, hey, guess what? We're correlating like these goals, life goals, right? With the reward being a chemical induced high.
Yep. Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
And that's what they're experiencing. And what are they doing? They're associating. They're associating these life experiences and goals and reaching for the stars. And guess what? You get cake too.
Yep. Yay. And just what you said there, neurons that fire together, wire together. So you are creating addicts from young. What really kills me is when I see like 1-year-olds drinking soda or eating ice cream. And I'm like, it's starting. Like that is where the addiction has started. And it really is like our children have undeveloped brains. They're still developing, and we are creating this addiction during their development.
We're bathing their brains in it.
Exactly.
Their neurons.
Yep.
It's just scary.
So like Liza said, our goal is not to say your kid should never have sugar for the rest of their lives. And if they do, you're a terrible parent.
Totally.
We do not want to shame anybody when it comes to managing their children's diet, because we personally know how challenging it can be. But what we are trying to say is that what is going on right now in general in society is not normal.
Right.
It is not okay. And there are some huge rewards that can come from putting in the effort now to change your children's diet.
We were there. I mean, we used to have, I'm ashamed.
Shame.
We used to have
no shame.
piggy parties. We called them piggy parties.
What are piggy parties?
Well, we would go and they'd get to pick out like, this is so bad or so good. Either way you want to look at it. But like the orange cupcakes from Hostess.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ding dongs, Twinkies, just whatever they chose. And we'd sit around and have a piggy party.
Yeah.
Movies, right? Family time associated with the chemical high.
Yeah.
And I bet that was a lot of fun.
It was totally fun.
Great bonding, right? Everybody's happy and you're getting along.
Right.
And,
We're awesome parents. Go us.
Yeah.
And then there's the crash.
Yes.
And then there's the horrible sleep. And then, but this is retrospect, like looking back, it's like, yeah, the next days were hard. It's, my husband would go to work and he's feeling down and he's on his second energy drink for the day. I'm at home texting him that I'm struggling so bad. The kids are bouncing off the walls or they won't focus. I homeschool.
Or they're fighting.
Breathe, everybody.
No breaks for you. Oh.
Breathe. So yeah, it's, you see it. And so you say those who are contemplating walking down this path of restricting, right? Because it is a form of restricting sugar because it's what they've been used to. There is a light at the end of the tunnel where it does just become part of the lifestyle, like Shanique said earlier, and it just becomes the norm.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you're like, wow, like I'm connecting with my kids on a whole nother different level.
Totally. Yep.
So.
And they're less emotional and like you said, connecting, and they're not just reacting all the time and fighting and picking fights and they can't think clearly and they're emotional hot messes.
I mean, they still do that, but.
Right. But not nearly as bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good point.
I distinctly remember the moment when I felt like I finally had enough community that I could manage who I was letting influence my children's lives because it took a lot of effort to create that for ourselves. Because if you're just participating in normal suburban public school systems, anywhere you go, this is the standard. This is what we do in America. Right. But we had like handpicked specific people that we wanted to start hanging out with, including you guys.
Made the cut.
Because it made my life and my job so much
easy.
easier when you don't feel like you're just fighting this war all the time.
Yeah.
So putting my kids in a school where they care about, we had this huge long talk with the administrator about all the things my kids were not allowed to bring. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, thank you that my kids, this is just going to be normal and standardized.
Yeah.
And then hanging out with people when we get together for potlucks and there's fermented vegetables and stuff from people's gardens and,
that's awesome.
sourdough bread. And
Like, where's my invite?
Right.
you can come. Okay. And I just had that moment where I was like, this food really is a community event.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah.
And when we start creating a culture surrounding food where we get together and we have that emotional part, where we have the aesthetic experience, we have the emotional human bonding, and we're doing it with healthy food that tastes really good and nourishes your body.
Yeah.
That's the kind of energy flow for physically and emotionally that I want to create for my kids.
Right.
Because then you're not rushing to the addicted sugary drinks. And a lot of times I don't think it's people necessarily, it's not even a conscious thing.
Right.
They're just like, I have low energy. Yeah. Like I need another cup of coffee or I need another energy drink or now I need a sleep aid because they're so out of whack with their circadian rhythm.
Right.
And the food is creating that additional like hardship physically and emotionally.
Yeah, exactly. I want to go into every family's story on where they were and what the process looked like. But before I get into that, just kind of touching on this, like a community, I actually had this massive vision the other day where I want to, by next summer, and you guys tell me if you think this is my first time actually like vocalizing this out loud. I haven't even told it to Tristan, but like I want to do like a monthly, like, wouldn't it be cool if we did like a monthly get together from like all the local moms on Instagram and, everyone that's trying to find some kind of healthy community. And it would be like almost like a carnival where there's only health food, like food trucks, and like there's like people can bring snacks and it has to be healthy food that you share with like other kids or something, and they all come and play together, and there's like bounce houses and slip and slides, and it's like a whole day festivities. But the food there is healthy food, and we're re-indoctrinating them. Like we're creating that happy experience with healthy food versus what our cultural norm is. Like, does that seem like a weird idea?
No, I'm totally in.
Like let's make this happen.
Bring on the tinfoil hats.
But okay, so that's my vision.
Well, I think
Coming
that,
soon to a Dell near you.
Yeah,
well, I think that that correlates with your idea of the support
Yes.
in the shift. And sorry, husbands and fathers out there, but I mean, the moms usually head up the food department and their kids and battling that front. So we need that support.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I know my husband became to be in on those events wholeheartedly, but I think that it takes a village, right? We've heard that before, but we moms also need other moms. Women need other women. Men need other men.
Women need women. Yep. We need to help each other.
And kids need kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our kids influence each other. Like my kids come home all the time and they're like, Tennyson won't eat this. And then like they still eat it, but I can see their shame. And I'm like, good job, Tennyson. This is peer pressure I approve of.
Yeah.
And my oldest Donovan, he is struggling because church is basically the only other area. Like we have a homeschool commonwealth where we're all mostly like-minded with food. But every class at church, they give candy to the boys in his class. And he's like, Mom, I don't want to be the one that says no.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy, but like, I'm going to leave this up to you.
Yeah.
And, and then if small victory or huge, really, but he comes up and he goes, I said no. I didn't get the M&Ms or the Skittles this day. And I'm just like, oh, good job, bud. Like, I'll reward you in other ways at home.
Right. Yes.
Like, we'll go get you the Lily's dark chocolate or something that he enjoys as an alternative. But, like, again, to those who struggle with a budget, that gets pricey.
It can. It really can.
So you got to make the homemade treats and have it as something that's available for them to grab and not so controlled.
Right. Yep. I use a reward system a lot at home. I really do. Like we have dessert almost every night, but it's a healthy dessert. It's modified. It's always like changed, or it's paleo or it's sweetened with dates or something. But let's talk about what your story looked like when you were making the transitions. Who do we want to start with? Liza?
Yeah, sure. So, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking to my very first baby when I did like the rice cereal and so much dairy. Like she just lived on dairy for months and months.
Yeah.
I know. Oh my gosh. I started noticing some health problems in me, and I started noticing them in my kids a little bit. And then the big clincher was when we moved across the country to the East Coast, and my 4-year-old had developed psoriasis all over his entire body.
Yeah.
And I went to the doctor, and they said, this is incurable. There's nothing you can do, and he'll just have to be on a steroid for the rest of his life.
Wow.
And I just looked at the doctor, and I looked at my kid, and I thought, no way.
Yeah.
There's no way. Like, there's no way that this is an option for us.
Right.
So I started just really researching and diving because, like you said, the misinformation or the like plethora of information is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
Because there is kind of like a food war going on in the healthy sector, right? So there's the food war of like the sugar, but there are so many really adamant bloggers and influencers and nutritionists who get online and have their platform.
Yep.
And they demonize and vilify these other ways of eating. So I was really overwhelmed with all the information, and I don't really enjoy cooking either. So that's just a big hurdle for me because I kind of have issues with like patriarchy and women in the kitchen and stuff like that. So I didn't like that being expected, right? Like I didn't want to be this 1950s wife, like in the kitchen all day long.
Yeah.
Because I had other things to do with my time and other things I wanted to concentrate on.
Yeah.
So we ended up going with Weston A. Price because it made the most sense to me.
Yeah.
And I just remember we took him to a Chinese herbalist and got the whole range of herbs. And then we just like literally cleared out everything in our kitchen. I had a brand new baby. Emma was 6 weeks old. And I was spending 5 or 6 hours in the kitchen retraining myself how to get the flow of food to work. It doesn't take me nearly that time now.
Yeah.
But those first several months were so strenuous because it like broke my brain.
Yes. I remember that.
It was so overwhelming to figure out what to eat. Like, okay, if I can't have all these things, then what do I replace it with? Because it feels like this loss. It's like, it was almost this grieving process of like, you just took away everything that brought me joy. Because life is overwhelming and being a stay-at-home mom is overwhelming. And our modern culture is really overwhelming. And this thing brought me joy. Yeah. This was a consistent piece of joy in my life, and you just took it away. Like, what do I have left?
Right.
It was just so, I remember I was really emotional about it.
Yeah.
I was resentful and I was angry. But at the same time, like underneath all of that, I knew that I wanted this change.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to take control over what our food looked like.
Yeah.
And I knew that this was a baseline that we were changing.
Yes.
And so if you have, you know, a major event that's kind of traumatic or scary or something like that, like that's really different than changing your baseline.
Yep.
Changing your baseline is one of the hardest things you can ever do. And you have to be really gentle and you have to be really kind to yourself and you have to be really forgiving and you have to
patient.
And you have to be so patient with tiny, tiny micro, you know, like micro changes because you're creating a new floor. And so you kind of like do one step and let it cement and then do another step and let it cement. And then, because you're just slowly building this thing. So I felt like we were remodeling our house while at the same time we were living in it while we were in a hurricane. That's what it felt like.
You
No big deal, in other
that
words.
so beautifully. You're like a wordsmith. That was so amazing. You are redefining your baseline. And I remember spending hours in the kitchen in the beginning because I didn't know anything about spices and flavors and how to cook vegetables. And like, that was really scary and intimidating. But to listeners out there, it isn't like that anymore. Like, and just a plug for the program. Like, I've created a program that can make it really easy. Like, you're being handheld through it. Because I remember with our story, my mother-in-law flew into Texas when Tristan was going through treatments and stuff. And she was teaching me how to make bone broths. And like, so she came, cleared out my pantry, took out all the processed foods, all the sugar. She went and did my grocery shopping for me. And then she started showing me, okay, this is how you prep this. This is how you prep this. This is how you prep this. And my brain was exploding. And what did I do in stress? I went and bought candy when no one was watching. I went for Snickers and Twixes and I would eat it in my car outside the house and I would throw the candy like wrappers in the trash outside so no one saw it because I was so overwhelmed. But she handheld me through that. But when she left, I was terrified because I'm like, what do I do now? And so that's like, I spent hours in the kitchen trying to figure it out. But then it became easy and it became intuitive. And after a few months, I was like, I've got this. I know what to do. I know what flavors. I know what ingredients I have. But it still took some time. And that's why when I counsel with clients, and that's why when I created this Gutsy Health program, I was like, it can't be that hard because people won't want to do it. And so I created this program. The decision fatigue was gone. The planning was done for them. Someone's hand holding you through it. Someone's doing your grocery shopping list. Someone's doing your meal prepping. So you don't have to think about what's next. What do I need to do next? What do I need to put together next? But that is what I had to learn all by myself with a little bit of help from my mother-in-law, a lot of help from her actually. And that's when we redefined our baseline. Now let's hear your story. I want to hear your story, Katie.
I would probably start it off with our first two children. I mean, I was unaware, honestly. I was living the life, right? Like of convenient foods and preparing what I knew. Like,
do you care if I share with people like autoimmune issues?
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
Like
go right ahead.
Lots of health issues, hormonal issues.
Right. I mean, okay. So my medical background would tell me you listen to your doctor, you take the meds that they tell you to take, and this is your new norm. Yeah. Welcome to your life.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't know that I was having thyroid issues until 9 months after having my first, with Donovan. And I went in and I'm just so tired. And it took me that long because I just figured that this is mom life. I must just feel this way because I had a baby and I'm nursing and I'm exhausted. And then I go in, they're like, yep, your labs are off, XYZ, here's your meds. Yeah. We'll see if it works. Yeah. Nothing else. I asked about dietary, nothing. They were just like nothing. You know, but this has been way back. Let's go back to junior high. I was having horrible health issues and even being told I was a hypochondriac by my PE teacher in junior high. And I remember, I mean, that was traumatizing for me, the shame that was put on me. And I'm like, no, I'm really feeling what I'm feeling. Well, when was PE? It was right after lunch. And I didn't know that I was triggering my gut and having issues from food and just felt horrible after. And I was put on stomach ulcer medication. I mean, to layman's terms, but at 12.
Wow.
So like,
lots of
let's
health
really
issues.
think about this. Go through really speed up here. Going to nursing school, and I'm on the clinicals on the floor, all white, and I start bleeding
Oh, wow.
rectally.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care if I'm throwing that out there because people, this is real life. People
This
are
is
struggling
real life.
with these unknown
Yep.
medical issues and no like precursor other than just I'm here and I'm like, oh, I guess I got to go to the ER,
Yep.
to my instructor. And, colonoscopy the next day, meds up the wazoo,
Yeah.
no pun intended. And, or was it? And, I was told, you have ulcerative colitis. And I'm like, okay.
Great.
Well, so at this point I knew I had, ulcer issues. Now ulcerative colitis. I was also previously diagnosed with PCOS. What I lovingly referred to as my dinosaur eggs, my ovaries. They just looked like, if you see the ultrasound, you'll know what I mean. And those of you who haven't know. But I didn't have other typical signs like the overgrowth of hair. I wasn't super overweight then. But it was a very big struggle to keep the weight off. I was super active and my food intake was not that fabulous. And now looking back, I naturally put myself kind of on a keto paleo diet just by food aversions.
Yeah.
My body kind of guided me away from like, even when I was a child, I didn't like soft tacos with lettuce. Well, we did cabbage. Growing up on our tacos. So, and go to find out now that I have to be careful with cabbage and Brussels. But like when I'm not healed, I'm more healed now. So I can tolerate it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But these are things that we've learned gradually, retrospect. And so let's go back again, 2 children, being told I'm just hypothyroid, but I'm also PCOS, ulcerative colitis.
Yep.
I'm very gassy, very burpy, heartburn. And, we moved from California to Utah and separated from family unit, right? Like feeling very independent and lonely. Honestly, my husband was working as a manager in a fab shop and I seeked after CrossFit. So I was doing CrossFit quite solidly. And it was my community. And then a nutritionist, this is where I'm going to credit, this is the biggest seeds that were placed for me. Who was another person in the box who worked out. She did a class and she talked about leaky gut. Well, I was familiar with it, but I really didn't know the ins and outs and fermented foods and then paleo and how that all associates and how you can incorporate things in your life that have drastic differences. So I wasn't dropping weight doing CrossFit. I mean, this is insanity. I was doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
intense.
I was,
As people do.
yeah, right. Oh, I drank the Kool-Aid, let me tell you. And changing the diet, this doesn't mean you're going to have triplets, everybody. Okay. But I finally got pregnant. I mean, I had 5 miscarriages before that. 5.
Wow.
And 4 of those were after established heartbeats.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is huge, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just being told because, my PCOS.
Yeah.
And so I started on paleo. I was like, 4 months in and
Pregnant with
conceived
triplets.
And just to be clear, not doing any kind of fertility treatments.
No,
at that
yeah,
point.
right,
Okay.
exactly.
Just
They were
changing your
spontaneous.
nutrition.
Just changing my
Getting the inflammation down.
right, and
healing
so
your body.
and that's what I associated it to because I figured my ovaries were like, oh, we can work.
Yeah.
Pew 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 pew.
Look what we can do.
And there's all the eggs and Scott's guys were like, woohoo!
It makes
Right. And no, we didn't have to do it 3 times in one night. It's just
In case you're wondering.
Right, in case you're wondering. We were also on a trip to Disneyland when we conceived, so I just said it was like bippity boppity boo.
Oh yeah.
But it's it's one of those things where I look back and I'm like, okay, health wise, I was theoretically in the just 3-4 months into this diet change, the best I'd ever been. And
The body started to naturally regulate itself again.
right.
Healing.
And, right. And at this point I had really kicked on like the sprouted grains, sourdough bread during that pregnancy because everything I was told was like, you need to gain 20 pounds by 20 weeks. Because, because it's sustained weight gain for multiples.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because towards the latter end, you basically start eating yourself. Or the babies start eating you. And it was a big journey. And we discussed this a little bit before the podcast, but I started really tanking towards the end of that pregnancy with the triplets, and I was on bed rest, and my mother-in-law lovingly came up and lived with us for like 4 months and took care of the other two kids, and the babies were in the NICU. And so here's my exposure, right, to like hospital food, eating at the same restaurant 3 times a day.
And not a very good restaurant at that.
I mean, granted, good food,
Was it?
just not exactly nutrients, you know, like what I was trying to strive for during the pregnancy. And it was hard. It was really, really hard going through that. I don't, like food wise at home, I was out of control. So like life instances put us in situations where we just have to adapt and overcome, or be the firefighters putting out the fire. So I had the babies and was breastfeeding them as much as I could, but they were only on my milk. So I was pumping. And then when it was time, I pumped until they were 18 months old.
Wow.
So they were only on my milk. And then we transitioned them to raw goat's milk. So, and that was a huge goal of mine, because I learned from Jovi, our second. I was working at the prison at the time. It was super stressful, and my milk supply totally decreased, but it was probably having to do with my thyroid, if we really want to get in the nitty gritty. And she was put on formula, and I had never had a baby so spitty. So she just acted different, because Donovan was fully breastfed till 15 months old. You know, we just see these things in retrospect. So that was my strive with the babies. And then I think we really took a big tank as far as our family goes in food. After the triplets, and we were totally in survival mode. I mean, as you can imagine,
eat whatever.
Just whatever. Well, and finances were huge. It's so much easier to give them carb laden processed food on a budget. And you know, and then we start seeing these in one of the triplets with his SPD, his sensory processing, just started seeing his outbursts more frequent. Started seeing rashes more frequent, and he also had horrible ear infections. I mean, back to back to back to back, and I just felt powerless. I mean, if we really want to know, like, this is empowering, this process of being more strict, or, you know, stopping the sugar. It is. And at first it feels degrading, but it is very much so empowering. And occupational therapy with the triplets for tongue and mouth development and suck and swallow, food exposures for textures for the triplet with the SPD. And then the big kids being used to one way, and then trying to it is like a conversion, isn't it? Converting them over to this new lifestyle. I would say, are we going to get into like tactics, like things that I use? Okay, sorry. Not so far off the topic, but a huge thing I will say is my experience as a nurse, like colliding with being a parent, is observation. I observed the dynamics of other parents with their children in situations of trauma and stress, and then even just coming in for immunizations, right? Or just the regular doctor's visit, there's always a reward. Like, we're going to go get you a happy meal after this appointment, right? Or, oh, no duelo, like no pain. They're not going to give you pain. No pain. Okay, just give them the shot. And it's like, no, I don't work like that. Like truth, right? I think it's about building a relationship with your child based on trust, so that they can, and I'm going into nursing, and like Tristan would be familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of needing security in order to go to the next level, right? And if you look at that, another triangle pyramid, you see that hand to mouth is kind of in that same area of development and food. And when we're introducing them to these things, and that hand to mouth, right? The boring eating, the emotional eating, we're training them to associate that stage of development at the same time that we're introducing these things, and trust. And so I feel like I told myself, right, because we're all really good parents before we have kids.
So true.
Right?
I told myself, I'm not going to do this when I have kids. I'm not going to lie to them. Like if we're going to the doctors and they're going to get a shot, or hey, you just got hurt and your arm looks really deformed, it's probably broken. Like, and this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But guess what? I'm going to be right there with you the whole way.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you when it's coming. And I'm not going to tell them I'll get you that candy bar or I'll go and take you to get that kid's meal. I have been guilty of it before because we learn monkey see, monkey do. And quite literally, like, I don't know if you have time for a little story, but I learned in lactation specialist classes that I've taken a story of a mother gorilla who wouldn't feed her babies. She kept, I think she went through 2 that expired. And on the 3rd one, the zoo staff were really rallying against to keep this baby gorilla alive because they were on the verge of extinction. And then they called in La Leche League. And put the mama gorilla in. I mean, I get chills in this glass enclosure, and sat all these mothers around this glass enclosure, and they all breastfed bare chested to their infants and their children. And the gorilla picked up the baby and started breastfeeding the baby gorilla. I'm like, I'm gonna cry. And we are in this culture of where we're not getting exposed to other moms doing these things that are best for our kids. Like, we're just doing the best we can with the information that we have at the time. Exactly. And that is also a form of nurses, when we educate, we just want to give the parents benefit of the doubt. They're doing the best that they can with the information that they have at the time. So planting these seeds, right, matter. And so, to revert back to my own kids, a tactic that was huge was building the trust, introducing the foods in a safe, judgment-free kind of this is just the norm, right? Like what we put out in our attitude and our how we present it is how they're going to take it. They watch us. Our kids watch us. And they're okay, well, mom's cool with eating this sashimi. So maybe I'm cool with eating fish too. This is just the norm. It's just expected. We never catered and made a separate meal for our kids. I have friends and family that do that. And no knocking them. Like they do what works for them. But we didn't do that. And so it's what's on the menu is what's on the menu. If they're hungry, they'll eat.
That's true.
Like they might feel bad if they refuse not to, but that's a teaching opportunity. And
I've had several moms that you lay down that law, right? It's like, this is dinner. Like there's nothing else after this, and they won't eat it. And then they go to bed hungry, and you're like, I'm sorry. They wake up the next day, they're famished, and they eat what's in front of them. You know what I mean? And so, and so you've created that boundary. And I think that's important. It's like, you're being honest, you're creating a boundary. This is it. This is just what we do now.
And then another huge game changer before I take up all the time was the no thank you bite. We established the no thank you bite from our first, even when we weren't eating that healthy. I mean, it's just new foods, right? And what it is they have to take a bite, even if it's small, and they can say no thank you if they don't want it anymore.
I love that. So the no thank you bite.
The no thank you bite. And and it's a game changer. It's like, nope, sorry, you got to do the no thank you bite. But this also exposes to, even though we know they don't like it,
they got to try it.
They still have to try it repetitively because you know what? They might like it. I mean, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, there's a little jingle for that too.
There's a jingle for everything.
And so they're like, oh yeah, like Daniel Tiger. I'm like, no, I was the original inventor of the no thank you bite. But it's helped a lot. And guess what? I do a no thank you bite too. Beets.
Oh, really?
You don't like beets?
I don't like beets.
There you go.
And the kids they just love to watch me take my no thank you bite because I'm just like, you know, and we just did it actually last week at a park. I got a beautiful salad from Ginger's and it has beets in it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. And they're like, my oldest, you know, you don't like it. I'm like, yeah, but I expect you guys to do no thank you bite. I need to do it too because maybe I'll like it.
Exactly. I love that. That's great.
So a trend that I'm kind of noticing here, I want to point out, is that a lot of what you have to do in order to create these healthy eaters that have hopefully a lifetime of healthy eating is it kind of requires you to be almost mean. And I say mean, not in the sense that it's truly mean to them, but the world looking in on that would say, that's mean. You're forcing them to eat food they don't want. You're not letting them have their own meals. You're not letting them eat the candy they get at school, right? And it gives you this sense of, wow, maybe I am kind of a mean parent. But I'm going to bring in a little bit of Buddhism here. One of the kind of the teachers that I've done a lot of following of, his name is Trungpa. I'll just call him Trungpa. And he would talk about something called idiot compassion, which is where you want to help people, but you're not using your head to help them, right? You're giving them what they are asking for rather than what they need. And we can't do that with children because they haven't developed the ability to think beyond 5 minutes from now.
Yep.
So they think that what they need is the sugar. They think that what they need is the hamburger with the terrible ingredients that was produced in a farm factory somewhere, right? But what they really need is to develop a healthy relationship with good food. And as their parents, it's our duty really to help them do that. And that is where true compassion comes from. Not giving in to the emotion of the moment and thinking to the long term, thinking 4 generations down the line where we want a healthy human population.
Right,
hopefully.
exactly. Liza, what were some of the things that you did for your kids that worked in training them?
Just threats and bribes.
Okay.
Just super authoritarian. Just lay down the line.
Sometimes you have to.
No, we did a lot of the same things. There is that firm boundary. Like this is what we're eating. Looking back, when we were living in Virginia and really changed our diet, I'm not sure we had the healthiest emotions behind it.
Yeah.
There was like some trickle down of like too much stress in the situation. So I really like what you said about establishing that relationship, because I feel like we've gone like double backed and kind of fixed a little bit of that stress in the situation, because it kind of feels to me, I know psoriasis is not a life or death situation, but we had just moved and started a new job and lost our community and had another baby. And it felt like life or death inside my body.
Yeah.
So I was acting out of a life or death situation because I was getting really controlling about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it just took a lot of work to find that boundary of like, this is something that I feel like I can keep up long term. Yeah. This is just a lifestyle. This is just the thing we do now. So the no thank you bite, we didn't call it that. That's a great name, but we did that too, where you don't have to finish it, but you just have to
try it.
You just have to take a bite.
Right. And you have to make them socially adaptable kids. Like they're at other person's house. They're not like, ew, that's gross. Right? Because you want them to be polite. And so you're like, just please say no, thank you.
That's really good. Just please say no, thank you. That's really good.
If you care if your kids turn into jerks, I mean, totally a personal preference thing though.
So, and I just feel like exposing our children to a whole bunch of food has been really, really helpful. So I really enjoy Asian food, Indian, Thai, and sushi. A lot, which I feel like is a natural diet to adopt when you're getting rid of gluten and dairy, which is the European diet, which is what we're all allergic to right now.
Right.
So you have to pick up these other things. And so when we do go out, we pick those restaurants and our kids love noodles and they love pho and they love sushi. They'll fight over sushi. And
that's great.
We love liver pate on sourdough bread. And we started to enjoy these really rich foods that they just naturally picked up and they enjoy too. And you can kind of trick them into having it be like a little sophisticated or a little like suave or a little something when they get, because the peer pressure is a thing, right? Yeah. So when they go to their friends and they're like, guess what I had? That kind of helps a little bit, you know? And it helps create a culture, which is one of my things with American culture anyways, right? Because we just don't have a culture of enjoying food. Right. I know I've been talking about this like the entire podcast. Because I really would I spent some time living in Europe growing up, and it really imprinted upon me that there are entire cultures who enjoy their food. They enjoy it. So, and they're picky about what they eat because they like high quality.
Totally.
And so I think that's another factor, and it's not to be, elitist or classist or anything like that, but just to say like, this is something I care about. So I'll go wild crafting with my kids and show them which plants in nature you can eat to see that food is everywhere.
Can you share that app with everyone listening? There's an app that you can download on your phone, and you take a photo of a plant, and it tells you everything that you need to know about the plant. Is it edible? Does it have medicinal properties? What it's called? What is that app called?
The app is called Picture This.
And you just go out hiking with them, and you guys start taking pictures of plants, and you learn about it.
And we learn about it. And then we do, so I'll have my foods get involved, I'll have my kids get involved in the prep. So picking grapes and making grape juice.
Yeah.
And showing them, like you were talking about earlier, of having it be anticipatory. And smelling it and savoring it and then putting it on the shelf and having pride. And having pride and being like, this is something that we do. So getting them involved in the process of where, not just like the chopping and the cooking and the eating, like where our food comes from. Right. Here's a farmer's market. Here are our farmers. Yep. Here are the people that we have relationships with, because I'm not going to slaughter my own meat, but I will absolutely support local farmers who grow grass-fed beef, and develop that relationship with them. And I will talk to the chicken lady, and I will buy the food stuff at the farmer market, and get them involved in the entire cycle of it. And here's how we compost, and here's where we put it, and I feel like that relationship to our bodies, and that relationship to each other, and that relationship to the earth, and having the gratitude that food just doesn't come from the grocery store.
Right. Yep.
And here's what we can do about it. It has woken up their eyes. Here's how you watch for seasonal changes. Like here are the buds, like here are the leaves changing. Yeah. Here the earth is now sleeping, planting food. We have tomatoes growing right now in our garden, and my 5 and 6 year old, every couple of days, we have to go check on the tomatoes. I want to pick the tomatoes.
Great.
So, having them have that experience. And so it gets into their nervous system. It gets into this is what life is. Right. This is normal. Yeah. It's normal to have a garden. It's normal to eat really good food.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, when we did the octopus post and Joni commented, I said, well, I think we're just so disconnected from where our food comes from that this bridges, narrows that gap and that disconnect from food. And it's just so important to have our children have that connection too. I mentioned again to Jonique earlier that we lived in a bumper pull trailer. We were in the process of converting a school bus. Yeah. For our family.
That's so cool.
We love it. But we wound up not going that route. But while there, we brought our goats with us. We actually had purchased 2 goats, and we milked our own goats for our raw goats.
Cool. That's awesome.
Well, we had control of what they were eating too, right? You are what you eat eats.
Yes, you are what your food eats. Yeah.
So we milked our own Nubian goats, and they also had a cow there and chicken. So we ate the eggs. We milked the cow. We built the stanchion for the cow. Like we did all these things hands on. Yeah. And they also had pork, heritage pigs, big pigs. Yeah. And they got all our scraps. And it made me feel good, right? Because then I am purchasing these organic vegetables, and then it's like circle of life. Yeah. The pigs are eating it, and then we get to eat the pigs. And it is just, but you're just so much more thankful. You feel very much like cliche, but Pocahontas. It's like I'm connecting with these animals. I'm connecting with the earth and the soil. We're feeling it.
It's totally like that.
And it's a big thing. And there is a sense of pride and a sense of empowerment with that education with the children. And you'd mentioned enjoying food, and it reminded me of Eat, Pray, Love, the movie with Julia Roberts. It's actually from Elizabeth Gilbert, but anybody speak Italian at this table? No. I'm
Liz is probably closest.
Right? La Dulce, yeah.
La Dolce Far Niente.
Yes. And it's the art of doing nothing. And so, and right. And so we think about this, and like the afternoon siestas. Like the shops close down, everybody shuts down. And they usually have like something pretty fatty, olives or like an antipasta plate, something like that. And they nap. And they just enjoy the moment, or they have the time with their kids, and it's like, that's what dreams are made of, right? Yeah. Homeschooling for us affords us that. Yeah. The ability to have slow mornings, the ability to enjoy in the moment or the chaos, whatever it is, right? But it really is about enjoying life and that sense of empowerment and education. Yeah. And just to quickly go on this, but I know that there's some that like we look at urban jungles, right? Like New York or even Australia, they had issues with this, but access, just the access to these things is difficult. So I know that many might be listening to this thinking, well, where do I begin?
Right.
With this, with even just having access to these things, the ability to teach our kids. If I live in the city and maybe they don't get out. I mean, like I went to school with kids who have never left Southern California, not even to San Diego. And we were only an hour and a half away driving time. They had not experienced this. Where I was very fortunate in the fact that my parents took me out to eat many places and different cultural foods and things like that. And so I would say now with the internet, like, you know, you mean obviously pre-screen, but you can show kids on YouTube and things where this food comes from.
Yeah. And start educating them about their food and their sources. I love that. That's a great idea.
Well, and many farmers, and if you can get out, are so willing to show the next generation where their food comes from.
Yeah.
Like a few years back locally, there was a organic farm camp.
Cool.
And so my older two, when the triplets, they're still not babies, they're 4, but they're the babies. They got to go to farm camp and they still talk about it.
That's really, really cool. There's a lot of things like that. There's here's a little shout out for, what is Sarah's school? It's a nature-based school.
It's called Wildwood.
Wildwood, yes.
Wildwood.
And it's actually a local school here, and it's so unique because it's all nature play, and it's a legit school. And so if you are a parent out there that's trying to find a way to teach your child, if you're like, my child's in front of the TV too much, like there are programs like that right now. There is also Free Forest School. Go look on Facebook, and they have activities. I actually started the one here with Sarah, and then I had to bail because I got too busy with the clinic. But like, you can just show up for free, and all the kids go out and they go into the forest and play, and it's structured, and then there's singing time, and but just getting your kids out and connecting again is important. Connecting with nature, connecting with their food, connecting in the kitchen. It's a holistic approach, right? It's not just we're changing our food. We're changing our relationship with our food and our environment, and we're going to start becoming intimate with it again. You know, it's like a marriage. You don't just like marry someone and then sleep in 2 different rooms. Like, you have to get to know them, and you have to get to know their personality, and you have to learn trust and learn about their history and their past. And so,
by the way, not always a bad idea to sleep in 2 different rooms, especially if someone snores. I just have to point that out.
Or you have newborn triplets.
Or that.
Just saying.
So I think actually, Trish, I think we should make this like a 2-part episode. Like,
well, there's a whole lot more we could talk about, but we have reached our limit for
as far as time
today,
goes. Yeah,
so.
we'll do a separate episode where we talk more about the nitty gritty technical stuff. Because I think these stories were fantastic to hear real life stories of how you got your children from eating the standard American diet to now octopus, playing with the dead octopus and then eating it, frying it up and eating it. You guys didn't even fry it, did you?
No, I just used, you want the recipe?
Yeah. No, actually. That'll be my no thank you bite. I'll say bite and then I'll be like, no thank you.
I'll give you a swirly tentacle.
Okay.
Another side of it is telling him it was Ursula, right? I mean, like, we make it fun. But no, just seasoned it and used avocado oil in the skillet first. And I actually let the kids drop them in because they curl up pretty quick. Yeah.
Cool.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's part of the fun.
Yeah. That's really cool. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for sharing your stories, sharing your input.
Hopefully you got out of this that, it is difficult to make these changes. And there's a huge emotional component, a grieving process that was brought up. And that is so true. But the rewards are huge, and the rewards are worth it.
And empowering.
And for all you moms and dads out there, I believe in you.
Yes.
You can do this.
You can do hard things. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for listening. And we'll catch you guys next week.
See you next time.
Goodbye.